I want to thank everyone for coming. This is our third night in the series of 5 nights. And tomorrow night we have David Botow, and on Friday we have Ron Haviv. Thursday we're not having any presentations. Give everybody a rest. I'd like to first thank our people who've been with us all along, the wonderful folks at Pro Photo Daily, American Photography, Epson Archive, and Photo Shelter. Tonight we have Alex Laurie, who is in Ukraine, and it is 2 o'clock in the morning, and he drove all day to get here. He is dead tired, but he committed to doing this presentation. So Alex, I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing and for coming in to doing the presentation. We really appreciate it. For everyone, this will be up on our YouTube page, hopefully by tomorrow or Thursday. We thank everyone, and Alex, it's all yours.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Sorry if I yawn or anything. It is 2 in the morning. Thank all you guys. And basically, yeah, this is my first one of these. So what do I do? Just jump into it? Share my screen?
Yeah. Start sharing your screen, and tell us how you got there and where you're going and
Cool.
Just go through it.
Okay, sure. So let me desktop. Boom. All right. You guys see everything?
Yes,
sir.
All right. So I'll start off from here. Okay. So I'll start off by saying basically I got here February 1st, and by here I mean Ukraine. At that point, there was a lot of hullabaloo about the Russian troops on the border, and were they going to move in? Were they not going to move in? Blah blah blah. And I basically figured I'd rather be bored in Kiev than be bored in Washington, where I live in DC. So basically, I stayed in an Airbnb in Kiev for 3 weeks, and at that time, a lot of Ukrainians saying, well, whatever happens, but we don't think Russia's going to invade. We've been dealing with this for 8 years. But a lot of people were taking it seriously, and they had these territorial defense training sessions, which is what this photo is, where a territorial defense now is everywhere, and manning checkpoints and fighting and blah blah blah. But in these days, a lot of everyday people were just kind of training and formation marching and first aid stuff. And this is in a park in Kiev. I forget what date that would have been, but this would have been a couple dates before the invasion. And so I'd gone out to Bakhmut in Donbass, which is where my good buddy, also a photographer, he's a really, really good photographer, was working for a little bit, Wolfgang. And we were shooting for maybe a couple days, or he had been there for a while, but I had arrived a couple days. And that would have been late February 20 something. And at that point, things had already started to get a bit more tense, and kind of the shift in the vibe was when Putin made that speech. I think it was on the 22nd, recognizing the two breakaway republics out in Donbass. And on the night of the 23rd, or I guess technically it would have been the morning of the 24th, he made a speech announcing this, whatever they were calling it, special military operation. And so Wolfgang and we were in this apartment in Bakhmut that he had rented, and at like 5 in the morning, we're like, oh geez, like it's finally happening. And we were of the mentality that a lot of the world was right now, that Russia was actually gonna like pull off this blitzkrieg, and it's gonna be, Erwin Rommel and France, and that they're just gonna rip across the border and get this thing done in like 3 days, which was my friends in the government had been telling me. and that was their principal fear. So we go ripping up to Kharkiv, which the main highway goes from where we were to Kharkiv to Kyiv, and then, if necessary, to Poland. So at 5 a.m, we're driving up to Kharkiv from Donbass, and basically the right after sunrise, we get to this strike here, where it's this civilian apartment when you're driving into Kharkiv, you see this huge plume of smoke that's just gigantic and doesn't change size on the horizon for like minutes. And I forget, we were like, should we make this left? Should we make that left? We're trying to find a hill or an elevated point to get this plume of smoke in, and we turn into this apartment complex. And the first thing we see is this woman, Helena, who's a 53-year-old teacher, covered in blood, and it's the scene is just absolute like mayhem, and there's like blood everywhere, everything's burning, and all these explosions are so loud, like a lot of times the dogs, because a lot of stray dogs, the dogs will all go deaf and panic and run into traffic, and the people panicking, and so there's roads everywhere. It's like carnage. The woman was she was on a bench, like rocking back and forth, wrapped in that blanket, like really agitated, like calling, on the phone with some loved one or something. I don't speak Ukrainian. And this guy went and grabbed her. And this is all like within the first hour or two of daylight of the war, of day one of February 24th. So this was a pretty stark awakening. I remember thinking, like, we woke up in another world, because we went to sleep on the night of the 23rd being like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? The same kind of attitude that we had for weeks at that point. And I had gone to a week or two after these photos were taken. I had gone to a couple of restaurants in Kyiv that I had gone to before, with friends and blah blah blah, because volunteers were there making like giant bowls of soup for the militia, the territorial defense, blah blah blah. And the receipts, they have those little spikes with the receipts that restaurants do. I don't know what those are called, but the receipts would go up to like 11:59 p.m. Of that night of February 23rd. Like, it was normal, and then you just woke up into a completely different universe. This guy, I think was his brother. This guy in the photo. These two, Snova, this woman. So I took this photo, and maybe a few weeks afterwards, I got a message on Instagram. Excuse me. And this woman had messaged me. It's like, hey, you got a picture of me and my son on February 24th. Can we have those pictures? And so, I looked at her, and her Instagram was just like any probably late 30 or mid 30s woman in like the US. It's like vacation photos, bikini on the beach, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh yeah, that is her. It's just like such a it's insane, the contrast. Like, oh yeah, like, is this you? And she was like, yeah. So she posted that, and like, she had to move, obviously. She's in Lviv now. And one interesting thing about her is, I'm gonna go back a second, is these two photos, because it was so early, like, got tons of and also Wolf's photo of this woman got tons of accusations of the Russian propaganda machine, just like went crazy with this stuff. Like, not a day went by where I wasn't getting multiple messages like, this is a gas. There were three things that they were saying. This is a gas leak. from 2017. This woman's a paid actress. Like she's like Ukrainian, like makeup, whatever. Or this is actually no. This photo is from Donbass from 2014. She's a victim of like Ukrainian bombing, and it's like I took that photo like a couple hours ago. Like I know, but the Russian propaganda machine was on it like immediately, and people still do that. Like people are still claiming stuff like that. And this woman Snova right here in the red jacket, maroon jacket, whatever. Like she is on it in the comment section. Like she'll be like, no, like I was there, like, and so it's
It's
been
interesting. It's interesting, Alex,
yeah.
how you describe that. How the social media made you find this woman, find you, and that ended up
Mhm.
being a beautiful story. And then that same mechanism turns this whole thing upside down into a bunch of lies,
Oh yeah,
right?
they
All
yeah,
within the same technology, right?
yeah, we're not free from it's not just a problem in Russia, right? I mean,
Yeah.
America, like half of America has a different view of our electric like what the last election than the other
Right.
half of America. And I can't blame the elderly American who's getting their news or whatever from the place they trust and whatever, like the elderly babushka in Russia who is just watching state TV and whatever. Like, okay, like it's not a good thing that they're propagating falsehood. But okay, like I understand, like this is who you trust and this is where you're getting okay, fine. But someone has to be the first person to write that and say that.
Yeah.
And that is like that's the opposite of everything journalists try to do, right? Is just, and that makes me mad.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
This is
I get to the point where it's like it's not my job to argue with every single person on the internet. Like, I mean, if we all did that, like, we
nothing
wouldn't
will
have any
go.
time left to do
Yeah.
anything. So this was outside, like, and they were hitting a lot of civilian. Obviously, these previous photos were all civilian. This was another civilian apartment in a town called Vasilkiv, if it was. Maybe 30-minute drive to Kiev. And I was noticing, I was going through my photos for something else, some other presentation, and I was noticing how many women in particular, but women generally, but elderly women in particular, that showed up in these photos. And I was kind of reflecting on it, and this is a dead elderly woman who died of from the shelling. And I think what it comes down to, I'm sure there are like humanitarian organizations who have like statistics and stuff. This is just my observations and like just thinking about it. They're probably a lot less likely to leave. Like you see elderly women who haven't evacuated like now, like 3 months into the war. They're probably less likely to leave, and they're probably more physically frail. Like the damage that would that like a 20-year-old guy or what like a soldier type would be able to sustain. Like that's it for them. And yeah, I just remember thinking that her shoes were really pretty. That traditional Ukrainian. It reminded me. One of my good friends and mentors is Carol Guzzi, who's awesome photographer, and she's really into the Wizard of Oz.
That's
And
just where I went.
I've watched a
Exactly
lot of the
where I
Wizard of
went.
Oz with her. Yeah, so Carol, this woman probably would have been about her age also, and has those red slippers. So I was, yeah, it's just Carol's someone I see all the time when I'm home. She lives in Arlington, and it's just could have been her, could have been anyone's loved one. So
Mm.
that was sad. Oh, so here's another. So both those sessions of photos I showed you, attacks on, civilian infrastructure. That carnage and everything, that's about a kilometer away from an airfield. Okay, probably they didn't mean to hit with that gigantic munition. I mean, it left a crater the size of, bigger than this hotel room for sure. Like, I'd say 20 feet across. Like, all right, it's probably inaccurate, crappy old Soviet accuracy or whatever. Okay. This is in a town that also has an airfield. So like, all right, probably inaccurate, just the collateral damage of war, and the Russians like don't care or whatever. And around this point here, this is their pin. This is that bridge. This is just tons and tons of refugees who are coming across, or IDPs, whatever. And this is around the time my perspective on that changed, and I'll tell you why. So on the left side of that photo is the town of Irpin, and beyond that Bucha, where at this time there would have been all the rapes and mass executions going on that the world discovered about 3 weeks ago. But this bridge here that had been blown had hundreds of people crossing it every day. And there, you can see one of them right there, this guy in the red jacket. At the time this photo was taken, a bunch of people had just crossed, and the Russians had put up this like little DJI drone, this like commercially available drone. And what they use those for, and I think Ukrainians do it too. A lot of modern warfare, people use these commercial drones, and the Russians were using it as artillery spotters. So they could see everything, and what they would have seen is exactly what is in my camera roll from these 60 seconds, which is families coming across with like dogs and babushkas and stuff, and these Ukrainian soldiers try to shoot it down because they know what it is. It's an artillery spotter. And maybe 30 seconds after this, the Russians dropped, maybe a dozen shells, killed 10 civilians, including 2 kids. And that's when I started changing my perspective. Like, okay, these aren't accidents, not all the time anyway. Like that, I mean, whoever was on the other side of that saw exactly what was going on, was family groups and pets and stuff, and they were like, yep, fire for effect.
Yeah, Alex, let me ask you, can you tell the difference between a real soldier and somebody who now is a soldier?
Yeah, usually by uniform. I mean, these guys are this guy right here in the foreground is probably territorial defense. No, I mean, I wouldn't say not always. Like, I mean, usually the patches can be different on their sleeves. Their gear is going to be different.
No, but I mean, like the way they hold a rifle, or any of those things, or like it looks like there's 2 different rifles here.
Usually like age. Like, I mean, if you're really young, or this guy's age, probably you're not career military, right? Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, honestly, in general, that's just kind of an interesting question. Like, it's a question that I was asking myself all through 2020 in the US. Like, if someone's in camo and these civil unrest situations in the US, like, are they cops? Cops look like soldiers now. Are they actual soldiers? Are they militia guys? Like, it's kind of hard to. A lot of people are in camo. Just this is that same bridge. This is on top of the bridge, and because the bridge was blown, that's why everybody was having to walk across that bridge, was because it was blown, and so people would drive cars. So on top of that bridge is just this graveyard of cars, and the Russians would shell it, and this is just someone's car who was trying to escape home, and that's all shrapnel damage from probably mortar or something.
Shrapnel then. Huh.
And then this is back when you could go in a little bit. I mean, a lot of journalists like died in Irpin, unfortunately. I think maybe 5 from shelling and everything. That's where that Fox crew, Ukrainian producer and the American camera op got killed, and yeah, a few more. But yeah, so it wasn't always a safe town to go in, but this is one of the parts of it. Early days of the battle that had been hit by a shell, and the family, probably the family, had been killed, and a lot of pets were around and houses that were destroyed, which is really sad, because like, what are the pets thinking? Like, they don't know what's going on, and this family's house where the dog was still there, and God only knows what happened to the family. And this is how a lot of the elderly people would have to get out, like, like getting hauled across like tons of bombed out rubble, and it wasn't a safe situation at all. Like, it was violent, and they have to cross these pretty extreme circumstances. But I'll tell you one thing, just as an aside, people were so friendly and grateful in a way that like was kind of embarrassing to media. Like a lot of these old babushkas in these situations would like go out of their way, like, and this is like slippery winter rubble, like it's dangerous. They've just been traumatized and left their whole life behind, and they would like go out of their way to like come thank us and hug us and stuff, like, which is like, we were like whoa, like, don't worry about it. Like, we're just here taking pictures, like, and it was such a nice change from, the US, where everyone hates you and like, what lies are you telling? Like, no, whether people are on the left or the right, they always think you're the opposite, and like, you're like, who are you working for? Who's paying you? Like, and like, we're so sick with media in the US, and like, nobody likes you. And here they were just like kissing you and hugging you. It was really like it was weird. I mean, I'd rather deal with that, but that was the experience of being media there. It was like pretty, for what it's worth. That's how they were reacting to us.
You ever get a sense of why you think that is, Alex?
Yeah, I think for one thing, everybody, and we were talking right before we went on. Ukraine's a post-Soviet country, right? Like, I mean, they were like a communist dictatorship for, a long time, and they do have remnants of that in their government and just kind of attitudes, but generally they're really happy to be done with it. And I think they seem to really value free media and like telling and like showing what's going on. Like, the media, like the military, they don't want you like in any place where you could get killed, and like, now it's their problem. But in general, they don't cause problems for you if they don't have to. Like, you can kind of talk your way. You're not getting to the combat area. Like, they don't want you there. But generally, like, it's not like in some other countries I've been to, where it's like, if someone comes over and starts talking, they'll be ushered away or whatever. Like, everybody is pretty, they will inconvenience themselves so that you can, tell the world or whatever it is, and thank you, and cops will thank you and stuff. I think probably, if I were to hypothesize, number one is because all this horrible stuff is happening because they've been lied about, right? Like, the whole war is based off of they're Nazis or whatever, all this nonsense. And so they're probably pretty happy to have the real stuff be shown. And I think that there's a perception that the more it's shown in the West, the more support they get. Americans have a really good reputation here. That's also kind of nice. Like, American passport is great to have here. Like, you can, it's nice to be able to like take credit for the good stuff our foreign policy has done, as opposed to like be ashamed of bad stuff our foreign policy has done, where I'm used to doing that in other parts of the world. But here it's like, okay, it seems like everyone's pretty excited about America, so that's nice. But yeah, I think one is because you're a Westerner, and they see us as their allies and their lifeline, and I think they're like, they seem to really value free and truthful media, and have a Soviet history of that, and also this whole thing is because they've been lied about by old Soviet master. So this is under that same bridge, captured Russian, and he's VDV, which is the airborne. These guys are supposed to be elite. And this is around the time when everyone was starting to accept the reality that like, oh, the Russians are like, this was a huge screw up on their part. Like, they're not getting Kyiv anytime soon. They're not winning this thing. And there's a lot of problems. Like imagine if Britain had put tanks everywhere along the Irish, in Northern Ireland, all along the Irish border, and Britain was just building it up and building it up and building it up. This super powerful, Britain's a powerful country with a powerful military and imperial history. They were building it up and building it up, and they were like, all right, we're gonna get Dublin in like 3 days. And it's like 2 weeks, and the Brits like haven't moved like the line of contact in Ireland. You'd be like, all right, like Britain should have been able to handle Ireland, right? It's kind of like that. And this soldier they brought in, they were questioning him, and if you can see, he's wearing sneakers. And they were like, why are you wearing sneakers? Like, it's like, it'd be like a US Army Ranger,
Right.
And
he's a pilot.
No, airborne. So so like rapid response, whatever. And they're like, why are you wearing sneakers? And he was like, well, the stuff they issue with us is so low quality, and the boots get waterlogged and get really heavy and slough the skin off of our feet. So we had to go loot stores and get Ukrainian sneakers instead. And there's a lot of stories like that. If this isn't a conscript, this guy's under contract, and there's a lot of stories like that of them having to sell their fuel, and like the looting is a huge problem with them. Stealing washing machines and
we heard about
all
that.
sorts. It's big. It's real. It's definitely real.
And the outcome for this guy?
He was ushered away after that, and then who knows? I don't know. I mean, they're doing some prisoner swaps. Like, I don't have any numbers on how many POWs they've captured, but he's out of the fight, which is probably better to do that. This woman's in Kharkiv. God, what was her name? I'm gonna say Anastasia. I'm pretty sure that's true. And also, like 50% of Ukrainian women are named Anastasia. Anyway, no. It was Alexandra. And she was 83. This house had just been shelled, and she was kind of in an agitated state, like wailing and everything. But what she was saying, and what these two women are looking out across is at the room across the hall, which is completely burned to a crisp. And she was saying, I went to go shake her hand, and if you look at her hand, her right hand, there's only 3 fingers on it. And she was saying, Voina, Voina, and I don't speak Ukrainian, but I know that Voina means war. And so she just goes into this huge tirade where she's wailing and everything. And our fixer translator is trying to get all that. And then eventually the firefighter was like, okay, like you guys got to go. Like this woman's freaking out. And so I was like, what was she saying, Stas? And she's 83 and she lost those two fingers in a bomb from a German bomb in World War II. So the Germans bombed her house. She lost her house in World War II. Her mom died in that war. And she's saying like, and now the Russians now I lost my house again in Kharkiv when the Russians bombed it. So that's pretty intense. Give me 1 second. I gotta grab a drink of water, but I can still hear you.
Okay. No, these images are very, very intense, and it's, you know, as painful it is to hearing the stories of each one of them is vitally important to give us context.
I remember this. One of the sadder. Kharkiv especially is full of elderly people making comparisons like that. Kharkiv is one of the big battles in Ukraine. It's where the T-34, that famous Russian World War II tank, you see it everywhere. That's where it was made. Was Kharkiv is where it was designed and made. So it's Alexandra. So this was, we were staying at a bar, an underground bar. The logic was we had our fixer had a connection there, and there was nowhere to stay at that point. But this underground bar was still cooking and everything again for territorial defense, and it was underground. Excuse me. And you know, you want to stay underground as much as possible. And it was, you know, martial law had been in effect at this point for probably I don't know, maybe a month. And part of that is prohibition on alcohol. So we were staying at this bar and like they were like pouring drinks, and it was like, okay, like this is this crazy cool war story. Like territorial defense was staying there, and they were like going out on ops with like night vision and everything at night, and then coming back, and like, you know, they're like, they would like the bar staff, they have a stage and they would, you know, perform live and everything, and like while, you know, military were cycling through, and it was just this wild situation. And we were like, yeah, this is it's a good time, you know, not a good time, but like, you know, it's really important for stress relief. And anyway, the next day we woke up and there was this like window rattling explosion in the morning, and turns out it was at another subterranean bar, and that's what this was. And these are firefighters dragging this body out. They were digging it. We were in the basement. We were in this bar, Ernest Hemingway themed bar, which is weird because that's like one of my favorite bars in DC that I go to a lot, is Ernest Hemingway themed. And yeah, I was just thinking of like, could have been that one. If the, you know, in a different life. But we were in this basement and they were looking for the body and they were digging around, and this is going on for like an hour. And one of the guy's friends who they were looking for his body had like came rushing in and had his Apple Watch from his house or something. And you know how Apple has like the Find My Phone function where you could, like, if you have if you're logged into your iCloud, you can, like, if you've lost your phone, it'll make a sound. So like he was like, okay, we can do the Find My Phone thing, and you could like, and everyone got quiet, and you could hear like the ding 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 coming from under the rubble, and it was that was really creepy. And then they would dig and dig and then try to do the Find My Phone thing, like doo-doo-doo, like muffled under the dirt, and eventually they found the body and got him out. That was creepy. I remember. These are a couple of the firefighters after that. So that was these guys work like crazy in really bad conditions. Like these guys are like textbook heroes. Like when that word gets thrown around a lot, but like when you're around these guys for even a little bit, you're like, oh my God, like that was like 2 hours, and you do this every day, and this is where you live, and you can't leave, and it's every day for you. Like these guys that's like heroic.
For sure.
And this is a lot of water mains were getting hit, obviously. I remember those first the first photos I showed you, the gigantic crater there was filled with water. Even by the time we got there, it was, it had been hit probably an hour earlier. It's filled with water because like water pipes get hit by these shells. And in Kharkiv, it was really cold, and so you'd have these like crazy ice sculpture. It was like really like surreal, like dreamlike. And this guy, this is another situation. I posted a picture of this guy, and his son like reached out to me like the next day. It's like, Oleg, you got a picture of my dad, Oleg. And I came back the next day to Oleg, and we got a selfie and everything. But yeah, it's crazy how fast social media travels, and like his son is living in Berlin. He's in Germany. And like you take a picture of like a random soldier in Kharkiv, within 24 hours, his son in Germany is going to be like, oh, hey, like in English, like that's my dad. Like, I didn't grow up with, the Cold War and the Iron Curtain, or like, they're like, Kharkiv would have been way into the Soviet Union when, my dad went to Kharkiv in 1988, I think. And he was like, yeah, like it was, the shelves were not stocked or whatever. And like now it's like you're so connected. So this is Oleg showing me around some destroyed building, and he was a really nice guy. He's doing well. I saw him the other day. So this is Kharkiv really recently. These people have been living underground since February 24th. So what's that? 6 weeks, 5 weeks, six, or my sense of time is really messed up, but like over 2 months they've been living down there. And yeah, so this is also like kids have to keep going to school. So this is them. Yeah.
The human spirit. This is the first photograph I think we've seen in 6 or 7 presentations where a child is smiling or a human being is smiling.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah, her name was Agatha. So the girl with the little pink headband, they're sisters. One was Agatha and the other was hold on, I want to get their names right. Agatha and Ariana. So I think that's Agatha. And they're 7 and 11. The dad is on the side with the headlamp. That's Igor. Mom is to the left, whose name is Elisa. And yeah, like they still got to raise their kids, right?
Yeah.
And there's, I want to say, 23 people living in these few buildings in the basement, these few rooms in the basement. And like it's boring, man. I remember when I first started doing this, this was in Iraq, and being in like the giant refugee camps, the IDP camps, just like as a foreign news consumer, like you hear like the worst of like sexual assault problems and unaddressed genocide trauma and all these horrible issues. But day to day, like it's just, for a kid, just freaking boring. It's boring, it's scary, everyone's stressed out, your parents are feeling like powerless. And it's awesome to like see kids be like, okay, it's a little bit of enrichment, but the boredom in those situations is brutal. But yeah, like Igor's still got a parent. You can't see really in this picture. I struggled to select this one because I like her facial expression, but you can't really see the little kitty cat in her lap. I'm a big cat person. That's another thing that I really like about Ukraine is the abundance of cats. And this is that school. I think this is the last one. So
Oh, that's a little school they have running. Well,
yeah, it's also the room where they get the Wi-Fi router working.
yeah.
So it's kind of like it's a hub. Anyone who wants to do anything on their phones or computers, like they come to that room and download the video or whatever, and then go back to the boiler room where they're living their life. So yeah, I hope you guys found some
No,
new
this is all very powerful work. We'll have Jay open up if anyone has any questions or comments. So what are your plans in the future now, Alex? You coming home tomorrow?
Yeah, so I had left for 3 weeks at the beginning of April because I had a friend, a really good friend, who was getting married, and I'm like just at the point in my life now where like my friends are getting married. So that was a big one. So I had to go do that in Cyprus, go home, refill prescriptions, stuff like that, and win a girl back. So I had some priorities to address.
Well, I guess now we're all going to want to know how that love story turns out. You got to get her back, Alex. Oh, you're back.
Yeah. Like I mean, but like the emotional whiplash of like it's like war and like just like civilians getting butchered to like, oh, I gotta go get the girl back, to like, oh, it's a wedding, and then like, oh, back to the war. It's like I honestly like I'm pretty mentally fried. Like it's a lot of
that is, I mean, that is a real thing. I mean, because I always have those conversations with Ron Haviv about that. You're somewhere else, and then the next day you're walking along Madison Avenue, and what do you do to sort of decompose?
Well, hopefully more decompression than decomposition at this point in my life. Yeah. Honestly,
you have a formula?
I mean, it's kind of like that here. Like Lviv looks like it's like a beautiful city. I mean, there were two cruise missile strikes here last night, but like that's pretty abnormal and pretty far away from the city center. But like the city center here looks like any vacation spot in Europe. It's like accordion people in traditional costumes, which like playing for change. It's like outdoor seating, pubs, and Ukraine is huge, right? It's gigantic. So you got some places where like people are cowering in their basements for months on end, waiting for humanitarian supply drops, and then you've got others where it's like you could go for backpacking through Europe during your college days, and it's a big country. So decompression, I mean, my cat plays a big role in that. I don't know. I'm just gonna have to like go home and like find out, because this has been probably the longest I've spent consecutively in a situation like this. I'm not like Ron Aviv. I'm not as much of a veteran, but yeah, I'll figure it out. I'd say the weirdest. It's really important for me. What I found, it's really important to keep talking to my friends, like Wolf, who's on the other side of this wall, and I hope I'm not keeping him awake. It is weird when you go home, and not to minimize anything, but like concerns are different at home. Day-to-day concerns are different. Not, everybody's lives are what's important to them. But you're sitting there and people are arguing about like whether you should wear an N95 mask or another mask, and it's like, dude, like, like you still haven't, like, it's crazy when it's like, should we, I remember when people first started putting DT on their car, they'd write DT, which means children, on their cars, hoping that they wouldn't get shot at. And like, where do we do? How do we get masking tape to write DT in big letters, or do we print it out or whatever? And I remember at a certain point, it didn't matter. Like, you just start seeing a lot of cars that said children on it that were still full of bullet holes. And it's like, it's just weird to go from that to like,
And how are you going to get out tomorrow? I mean, how far are you from the airport?
Well, there's no airports here. There's no commercial airports service here. So it's about an hour to the border. Get a cab and you walk across. It's pretty easy. Cars are a big pain. You see giant traffic lines. I've never done it myself. I don't want to. But walking across is pretty easy. Stamp. And then hopefully they'll have taxis to Krakow, and Krakow, get out of there.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is, because I had to do that last time, and it is pretty wild how like once you cross that border, now it's like trolleys are ding ding, and like everything is, you don't have to show your passport to cops whenever they ask. It's wild. And
if anyone has, we open up. If anyone else has any questions, now's the time. But that's an interesting thing to find yourself from one moment to the next, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Even that happens the same day.
Yeah.
It's like you can be like watching like the worst trauma of someone's life unfold, and then like go back to where your Airbnb and like get a beer. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you, Alex, how much we really appreciate you doing this, especially, like I say, it is in the middle of the night for you now. It's 3:00 in the morning, and we really, really do appreciate it. And do you plan on going back, Alex?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I was in Ukraine in August of 2019, doing out in Donbass, because remember, this war is at this point 8 years old. And I was doing that, it's just like World War I trenches. No one in the world cared anymore, but I was trying to get like more experience. And okay, like you got to apply for military permissions and blah blah blah. You got to wear your armor and stuff. So at that point in my career, it's like, okay, that's like a good training camp, basically. It wasn't incredibly dangerous compared to what it is now, but I'd like to see Ukraine in August again. It's really beautiful. I feel like I got like the classic American stereotypical perception of Eastern Europe of like snow and those Orthodox cathedrals and everything this time, but it really is a beautiful country, and spring. It's been. Oh, actually, you know what? I should have put in one more photo. I'm gonna bring this up. Sorry, I just want to show you guys.
Oh, we're.
So this is attributes. So it really is getting more and more beautiful. And this was this destroyed vehicle. I saw the other day.
Is that wheat?
I don't know what it is. But it's all turning green. Like whenever this car was destroyed, probably the greens weren't there yet, right? Because it probably destroyed a little while ago, probably a month or so ago. There's remnants of an RPG projectile next to it. So I mean, it was hit deliberately, and now spring's coming out, and now it's all surrounded by green. So yeah. End on that note.
Yeah, that's great. So Alex, we thank you. For everyone, tomorrow we have David Botel, which we're very, very excited about. That'll be great. If Alex, it works out with the lady, you should know that I'm clergy.
Oh, Frank.
I could conduct the wedding on projections, which
All
would be the
right.
first. So I'm
All
just
right.
putting that offer out there. But we appreciate it. Be safe, get home well, and thanks, Alex, very, very much.